I still remember every detail of that morning. The way the sunlight filtered through the bridal suite windows at the Rosewood Estate in Charleston, South Carolina. The smell of gardenias and magnolias wafting through the open French doors. My hands trembling as my best friend, Claire, fastened the last pearl button on my vintage lace gown. "You look absolutely stunning, Olivia," she whispered, her eyes glistening with tears. I caught my reflection in the full-length mirror. The dress fit perfectly, an off-shoulder A-line gown that my grandmother had worn in 1962, carefully preserved and altered to fit me. My dark hair was swept into an elegant updo, with small white roses tucked into the curls. I looked like I'd stepped out of a bridal magazine. But more importantly, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. I was about to marry Brandon Wells, the man who'd swept into my life 2 years ago at a medical conference in Atlanta. I was a pediatric nurse. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep with charm that could light up a room. Tall, blonde, with green eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He'd approached me at the hotel bar after a particularly grueling seminar on childhood immunizations. "You look like you could use something stronger than that wine," he'd said, sliding onto the bar stool next to me. I'd laughed. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been sitting through the same boring presentations all day. That was the beginning. 3 months of long-distance calls between Charleston and his home in Savannah. Weekend trips that turned into week-long stays. The way he'd surprise me with my favorite coffee, a vanilla oat milk latte with an extra shot, on mornings when I'd worked a double shift at Children's Memorial Hospital. He proposed on the beach at Folly Island at sunset, with both our families hiding behind the dunes to surprise us afterward. My mother had cried. His father had clapped him on the back and said, "You're getting a good one, son." Everything had been perfect. Fairy tale perfect. 5 minutes, ladies. My wedding coordinator, a brisk woman named Patricia, poked her head through the door. "The guests are all seated. Brandon's at the altar, and he looks nervous as hell." Claire squeezed my hand. "Ready." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. The ceremony was being held in the estate's garden, a sprawling maze of azalea bushes, ancient oak trees dripping with Spanish moss, and a white wooden arch decorated with cascading white roses and ivy. We'd invited 150 guests. My entire family had flown in from Charleston and as far as Boston. Brandon's family and friends had come from Savannah, Atlanta, and beyond. My father waited for me at the entrance to the garden, looking handsome in his navy suit, his silver hair combed back. His eyes were already red-rimmed. "My baby girl," he said, his voice cracking. "Don't make me cry, Dad." Claire spent an hour on this makeup. He offered his arm, and the string quartet began playing Pachelbel's Canon in D. The guests rose from their white folding chairs, turning to watch us. I saw familiar faces everywhere, my grandmother dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief, my younger brother, Noah, grinning at me from the 3rd row, my colleagues from the hospital, Brandon's business partners in their expensive suits. And then I saw Brandon at the altar, standing beneath the rose-covered arch, with Reverend Mitchell beside him. His best man, Connor, stood to his right, holding the rings. Brandon's eyes found mine, and his face transformed. Pure joy, pure love. He mouthed something that looked like, "Wow." My heart soared. This was it. This was my forever. The walk down the aisle felt both endless and far too short. My father placed my hand in Brandon's, kissed my cheek, and stepped back to sit beside my tearful mother. Brandon's hands were warm as they held mine. "You're shaking," he whispered. "Happy shaking," I whispered back. Reverend Mitchell began. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today in the presence of God and these witnesses to join Brandon Christopher Wells and Olivia Marie Foster in holy matrimony." I barely heard the opening words. I was lost in Brandon's eyes, in this moment, in the reality that I was about to become Mrs. Wells. We'd already picked out a house in the historic district of Charleston, a beautiful 3-bedroom with original hardwood floors and a garden where we planned to plant tomatoes and herbs. We talked about kids, 2, maybe 3. Brandon wanted a boy first. I secretly hoped for a girl. "Marriage is not to be entered into lightly," Reverend Mitchell continued, "but reverently, deliberately, and in accordance with the purposes for which it was instituted by God." The ceremony proceeded smoothly. Claire handed me Brandon's ring when it was time. Connor handed Brandon mine. We turned to face each other for the vows. "Brandon, Reverend Mitchell said. Repeat after me. I, Brandon Christopher Wells. I, Brandon Christopher Wells, he repeated, his voice steady and clear. Take you, Olivia Marie Foster, to be my lawfully wedded wife. Take you, Olivia Marie Foster, to be my lawfully wedded wife. To have and to hold, from this day forward. That's when it happened. A woman's voice rang out from the back of the garden, sharp and clear enough to cut through the reverent silence. Stop! Stop the wedding! Every head turned. The string quartet's music died mid-note. I felt Brandon's hands tighten around mine, his face draining of color. A woman was standing up from one of the back rows. She was blonde, beautiful, wearing a tight red dress that seemed wildly inappropriate for a wedding. She was also visibly pregnant, maybe 6 or 7 months along, her belly round and prominent. Brandon, she called out, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent garden. Tell her the truth. My mind went blank. I looked at Brandon, searching his face for some explanation, some reassurance that this was a mistake, a prank, anything but what it appeared to be. His face told me everything I needed to know. Guilt, panic, and recognition. He knew her. Who is that? I heard myself ask, my voice sounding distant and strange. Olivia, I can explain, he started. But the woman in red was already walking down the aisle, one hand on her belly, the other pointing at Brandon. Guests were murmuring, turning in their seats, their phones coming out. I saw my mother stand up, her hand over her mouth. The woman reached the altar, breathless and theatrical. Up close, she was stunning, the kind of beautiful that stops traffic. Her makeup was perfect, her hair styled in loose waves. She looked like she'd dressed for this moment. I'm Victoria Lane, she announced to the crowd, as if we were all part of some reality TV show. And I'm 7 months pregnant with Brandon's baby. The garden erupted. Gasps, shouts, the sound of chairs scraping as people stood for a better view. My father was pushing his way forward. Brandon's mother was crying. Connor was staring at his best friend with his mouth open. I stood frozen at the altar, still in my grandmother's wedding dress, still holding the ring that was supposed to go on Brandon's finger. That's not, Brandon started, but his voice lacked conviction. Don't lie, Victoria snapped. Not here, not now. Tell her about Atlanta. Tell her about every weekend you said you were traveling for work. Tell her about the apartment you've been paying for. Tell her about the ultrasound pictures you cried over when we found out it was a boy. A boy. She was having his boy. The boy he'd said he wanted. With me. But apparently, he was already getting one. With her. Olivia, please. Brandon turned to me, his eyes wild. This is insane. She's crazy. I don't know what she's. You don't know me? Victoria laughed, a harsh sound. Really? That's what you're going with? She turned to address the crowd again, like she was performing a monologue. We've been together for 3 years. 3 years. While he was dating you, she pointed at me. He was living with me in Atlanta. Get out, I heard someone say. It took me a moment to realize it was me. My voice sounded strange, hollow. Get out of here. Both of you. Olivia! Brandon reached for me. I stepped back, stumbling on my dress. Claire appeared at my side, her arm around my waist, holding me up. Don't touch her, Claire said, her voice like ice. My father reached the altar, his face purple with rage. You son of a... Mr. Foster, please. Reverend Mitchell tried to intervene, looking desperately out of his depth. Is it true? I found myself asking Brandon, even though I already knew the answer. Some part of me needed to hear him say it. Is the baby yours? Brandon's silence was answer enough. Victoria smiled, triumphant. I have the paternity test results in my purse if you need proof. We did one of those early DNA tests. Wanna see? The garden was chaos now. Half the guests were filming on their phones. My brother was being held back by 2 of our cousins as he tried to get to Brandon. Brandon's father was arguing with his mother, their voices rising above the din. I looked down at my hands. They were still shaking, but not with happiness anymore. The diamond engagement ring on my finger, 2 carats, princess cut, set in platinum, suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The wedding is off, I announced, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. I pulled off the engagement ring and the wedding band that we hadn't yet exchanged, and I threw them at Brandon's feet. They bounced off his shoe and landed in the grass. "Olivia, wait," Brandon said desperately. "We can talk about this. Please. I love you. I made a mistake, but I love." "A mistake?" I cut him off. "A 3-year relationship is a mistake. A baby is a mistake." Victoria was watching this exchange with satisfaction, her hand rubbing her belly in slow circles. I looked at her, really looked at her. "Why?" I asked. "Why here? Why now?" Her smile faltered slightly. "Because he was going to leave me. He said once he married you, he'd have to stop seeing me. I couldn't let him do that. Not when we have a child together. So you decided to ruin my wedding instead." "I decided to tell the truth," she said. "Someone had to." My mother was crying loudly now, being comforted by my aunt. My grandmother looked like she might faint. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, and it had turned into a nightmare in front of everyone I loved. "Olivia, please," Brandon tried again. "Give me a chance to explain. This isn't what it looks like." "It looks like you've been living a double life," I said. "It looks like you're having a baby with another woman. It looks like I don't know you at all." I turned to Reverend Mitchell, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere but here. "I'm sorry you wasted your time." Then I gathered up my grandmother's dress, held my head high, and walked back down the aisle. Every step felt like walking through water. The guests parted from me, their faces a blur of pity and shock. I heard my father shouting at Brandon behind me, my brother's voice joining in. Claire was at my side, her arm locked through mine. "I've got you," she whispered. "Just keep walking." We made it to the bridal suite. The moment the door closed behind us, my legs gave out. I collapsed onto the antique sofa, the same sofa where I'd been laughing and happy just an hour ago. "I'm going to kill him," Claire said, pacing back and forth. "I'm going to actually kill him. Noah will help me hide the body." I couldn't respond. I couldn't cry. I couldn't do anything but sit there in my grandmother's wedding dress, staring at the wall. There was a knock at the door. "Olivia!" My mother's voice. "Sweetheart, can I come in?" Claire opened the door. My mother rushed in, followed by my father, his face still red with anger, and my grandmother, who looked like she'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "Oh, baby," my mother said, kneeling beside me and taking my hands. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. How could he do this?" I finally said, and my voice broke on the last word. "How could he do this to me?" "He's a coward," my father said, "and a liar. I should have seen it. I should have known." "None of us knew, Richard," my grandmother said quietly. She sat beside me, her thin hand on my shoulder. "He fooled all of us." "What am I supposed to do now?" I asked. "Everyone saw. Everyone knows. It's probably already on social media. My wedding is the one where the pregnant mistress showed up. We'll handle it," my mother said firmly. "We'll get through this. Together." But I wasn't listening anymore. I was thinking about the house we'd picked out, the mortgage we'd already been approved for, the honeymoon tickets to Italy, the joint bank account we'd opened last month, the life we'd planned. All of it a lie. Outside, I could hear raised voices. The guests were leaving, their excited chatter about the scandal drifting through the windows. My fairy tale ending had turned into everyone else's juicy gossip. Claire's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her face darkened. "It's already on TikTok. Someone posted a video." Of course they did. My humiliation was now public entertainment. "I want to go home," I said. "We'll take you home," my father said. "Let's get you out of that dress first." But I shook my head. "No. I want to go home in this dress. I want to remember exactly how this feels. So I never, ever trust anyone like this again." My mother started to protest, but my grandmother squeezed my shoulder. "Let her," she said softly. "Sometimes you need to feel the pain to heal from it." So I stood up, still in my wedding dress, and walked out of the Rosewood estate. Guests were still milling around in the parking lot, their voices falling silent as I emerged. I held my head high and walked to my father's car. As we drove away, I looked back one last time. Brandon was standing at the entrance, Victoria beside him, her hand on her pregnant belly. He saw me looking and raised his hand, as if to wave, or maybe to say goodbye. I turned away. That chapter of my life was over. I just had no idea what came next. The video went viral overnight. I woke up the next morning in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house, still wearing my grandmother's wedding dress. I'd fallen asleep on top of the covers around 3 in the morning, after hours of staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every conversation, every red flag I'd missed. My phone had died sometime during the night. When I plugged it in and turned it on, it exploded with notifications. Hundreds of them. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails, Instagram notifications, Facebook messages, emails. I scrolled through them with numb fingers. OMG, Olivia, I just saw the video. Are you okay? Girl, I'm so sorry. What a scumbag. Saw what happened at your wedding. Praying for you. Is it true? Call me. And then, the ones that made my stomach turn. You dodged a bullet. At least you found out before you married him. Everything happens for a reason. I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. The screen didn't crack. I wasn't even lucky enough for that small satisfaction. There was a soft knock on my door. Livy. My mother's voice. She hadn't called me that since I was a child. Come in. She entered carrying a tray with coffee, toast, and scrambled eggs. She set it on my nightstand and sat on the edge of my bed, taking in my appearance. Still in the wedding dress, my makeup smeared, my hair half fallen from its elegant updo. Let's get you out of that dress, she said gently. This time, I didn't protest. I stood up, and she began unbuttoning the tiny pearl buttons, the same ones Claire had fastened yesterday with such joy. When had yesterday been? It felt like a lifetime ago. The dress pulled at my feet. My mother picked it up carefully, reverently. I'll have it cleaned and preserved, she said. Maybe someday. Burn it, I said. She looked shocked. Olivia, this was your grandmother's. I said burn it. I never want to see it again. My mother pressed her lips together but nodded. She left the room with the dress, and I pulled on sweatpants and an old college t-shirt. The coffee was still hot. I wrapped my hands around the mug and sat on the window seat, looking out at the Charleston street where I'd grown up. My phone buzzed again on the floor where I'd thrown it. I ignored it. My mother returned without the dress. Your father wants to talk to you. And Claire's been calling nonstop. Your brother too. I don't want to talk to anyone. I know. But they're worried. And there are some practical matters we need to discuss. Practical matters. Right. Because a wedding wasn't just a ceremony, it was a business transaction. We'd spent $30,000 on yesterday. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the photographer, the band. All of it wasted. The vendors, I said dully. We have to deal with the vendors. Your father is handling it. Most of them are being understanding, given the circumstances. She paused. The video has been shared quite widely. I think they're sympathetic. The video. Of course. My humiliation, immortalized forever on the internet. How bad is it? I asked. My mother hesitated. That told me everything. Show me. Olivia, I don't think. Mom. Show me. She reluctantly pulled out her phone and pulled up TikTok. The video had 2.3 million views. 2.3 million people had watched the worst moment of my life. The video started just as Victoria stood up. The person filming, I recognized him as Brandon's cousin Tyler, had captured everything in crystal clear quality. Victoria's voice shouting stopped the wedding. Brandon's face draining of color. Me, frozen at the altar in my beautiful dress. Victoria's dramatic walk down the aisle, her red dress a stark contrast to all the white and pastels. Her announcement about the pregnancy. The comments were even worse. Messy. I live for this drama. Poor bride, OMG. The way he just stood there. I would have thrown hands immediately. This is why you do background checks, ladies. The pregnant mistress showing up in red is sending me. Anyone else think this might be staged? Seems too perfect. That last comment made me want to scream. People thought this was fake. That I would stage my own humiliation for internet clout. There were other videos too. Different angles, different moments. Someone had filmed me taking off my rings and throwing them at Brandon. Another video showed my father and brother being held back as they tried to get to Brandon. A third showed me walking back down the aisle, Claire at my side, while guests whispered and filmed. I was a meme. A cautionary tale. Entertainment. Turn it off, I said. My mother quickly locked her phone. People are cruel. They don't understand what you're going through. Has he tried to contact me? She nodded. He's called the house phone 17 times. Your father told him if he calls again, he'll file for harassment. Good. But even as I said it, a traitorous part of me wondered what he wanted to say. What possible explanation could justify what he'd done? Was he going to apologize? Beg for forgiveness? Explain that Victoria was lying? No. Victoria wasn't lying. I'd seen Brandon's face. He'd known exactly who she was. There was a commotion downstairs. Raised voices, my father's loudest among them. My mother and I exchanged glances and hurried down. In the living room, my father was blocking the doorway, his arms crossed. I said, "You're not welcome here. Please, Mr. Foster. I just need 5 minutes with Olivia. 5 minutes to explain. Brandon. He was here. I appeared at the top of the stairs. He looked up, and I barely recognized him. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair uncombed, his shirt wrinkled. He looked like he hadn't slept. Good. Olivia, he said desperately. Thank God. Please, just let me explain. Explain what? I asked, descending the stairs slowly. My father moved to intercept me, but I held up a hand. It's okay, Dad. Let him talk. I want to hear this. Brandon looked relieved. Can we talk privately? No. Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of my family. He glanced at my father, my mother, my brother Noah who had appeared from the kitchen, and my grandmother who sat in her armchair, looking at him with pure disgust. Fine, he said. Olivia, I love you. I've always loved you. What happened with Victoria? It's complicated. Complicated, I repeated. You're having a baby with her, Brandon. You've been with her for 3 years, while you were with me. What's complicated about that? It's not what you think, he insisted. Victoria and I, we have history. We dated before I met you. When I moved to Savannah, when we started dating, I broke things off with her. But she kept showing up, kept calling. She was obsessed. So obsessed that you kept sleeping with her? I asked coldly. He flinched. It wasn't like that. She manipulated me. She threatened to hurt herself if I didn't see her. I was trying to help her, and things got out of hand. Out of hand, Noah said incredulously. For 3 years? And you got her pregnant accidentally for 3 years? I didn't know about the baby until a few months ago, Brandon said. She told me she was on birth control. When she told me she was pregnant, I tried to do the right thing. I offered to help financially, to be involved in the kid's life, but I made it clear that my future was with Olivia. And she didn't like that, I said. So she showed up at our wedding. Exactly. She's unhinged, Olivia. She's trying to ruin my life because I chose you. I studied his face. He looked sincere. Desperate. For a moment, just a moment, I wondered if he was telling the truth. If Victoria had manipulated everything, twisted it to make him look bad. Then I remembered the way he'd looked at her. The guilt. The recognition. Show me your phone, I said. What? Your phone. If Victoria's been stalking you, harassing you, manipulating you, there will be evidence. Show me your phone. Brandon's face went pale. I don't have it with me. Liar, my father said. I left it in my car, Brandon protested. Olivia, you have to trust me. Trust you. I laughed, and it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. You're having a baby with another woman, and you want me to trust you? The baby doesn't change how I feel about you, he said. We can work through this. Couples therapy, whatever you need. We can still have our life together. The house, the future we planned. With your pregnant ex-girlfriend in the picture? She won't be in the picture. Once the baby's born, I'll set up child support and visitation. That's it. You and I can move forward. I stared at him in disbelief. You think I'm going to marry you and play stepmom to your affair baby? It wasn't an affair, he said weakly. We weren't married yet. Get out, my father said. Get out of my house before I throw you out. Olivia, please. Brandon took a step forward. I know I messed up. I know I should have told you about Victoria. But I love you. I want to marry you. We can still make this work. No, I said simply. We can't. You're not even going to give me a chance. His desperation was turning to anger now. After everything we've been to each other? 2 years, Olivia. 2 years of our lives. 2 years of lies, I corrected. You were with her the whole time, Brandon. Every business trip to Atlanta. Every weekend you said you were working. You were with her. It wasn't the whole time. How much of the time? He fell silent. That's what I thought. I crossed my arms. I want you to leave. I don't want to see you again. I don't want your calls, your texts, your explanations. We're done. What about the house? He asked. And there it was, a flash of something ugly in his eyes. We're both on the mortgage application. We put down the deposit together. Keep it. Keep everything. I don't want anything that reminds me of you. That's not fair, he said. You put down $15,000. That's your money. Consider it payment for wasting 2 years of my life. Olivia, be reasonable. I said get out. I shouted and my voice cracked. Get out before I call the police and have you removed. Brandon looked around the room, at each of my family members' hostile faces, and finally seemed to understand that he wasn't going to get what he wanted here. Fine, he said bitterly. But you're making a mistake. You're throwing away our future because of one mistake. You're the mistake, Noah said. Now leave before I help you leave. Brandon shot him a venomous look, then turned back to me one last time. When you calm down and think clearly, call me. I'll be waiting. Don't hold your breath, I said. He left, slamming the door behind him. The moment he was gone, my legs gave out. My father caught me before I hit the ground. I've got you, sweetheart, he murmured, helping me to the couch. I've got you. My mother sat beside me, her arm around my shoulders. Noah disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a glass of water. My grandmother watched me with sad, knowing eyes. He's not worth your tears, she said softly. I married a man like that once, before your grandfather. He made promises he never intended to keep. The day I left him was the day my real life began. I'd never known that about her. She'd been married before my grandfather. You dodged a bullet, Livy, she continued. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but that man would have made you miserable. At least you found out who he really was before you tied yourself to him legally. Everyone keeps saying that, I said. That I'm lucky. That I dodged a bullet. But it doesn't feel lucky. It feels like my life is over. Your life with him is over, my grandmother corrected. And good riddance. But your real life, that's just beginning. I wanted to believe her. But sitting there in my childhood home, in sweatpants, while millions of people watched my humiliation on repeat online, I couldn't imagine what that new life would look like. My phone buzzed again. I'd left it upstairs, but Claire must have been calling the house phone because my mother's cell started ringing. It's Claire, my mother said. Should I? I'll talk to her, I said, taking the phone. Olivia? Oh my God, I've been trying to reach you all morning. How are you? Stupid question. You're obviously not okay, but are you okay? Despite everything, I smiled slightly. Claire had been my best friend since college, and her rambling when she was worried was endearing. I'm alive, I said. I'm coming over. I'm bringing ice cream and wine. Do not argue with me. Claire, you don't have to. I'm already in my car. See you in 10 minutes. She hung up before I could protest. True to her word, she arrived 9 minutes later with 3 pints of ice cream, mint chocolate chip, cookie dough, and strawberry, and 2 bottles of wine. It's 10 in the morning, my mother said. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, Claire replied. And Olivia just had her wedding crashed by her fiancé's pregnant mistress. I think that warrants day drinking. My mother couldn't argue with that logic. Claire and I retreated to my bedroom with our contraband. She opened the wine first, a Pinot Grigio, and poured generous glasses for both of us. Okay, she said, sitting cross-legged on my bed. Talk. Tell me everything. Have you seen the videos? Have you talked to him? Do I need to slash his tires? Yes, and probably, I said, taking a long drink of wine. He came by this morning. Tried to explain everything away. Said Victoria was obsessed with him, that he was just trying to help her, that the pregnancy was an accident. Bull, Claire said. Total bull. You don't accidentally have a 3-year relationship. That's what I said. I took another drink. He wanted me to take him back, Claire. He actually thought I would just forgive him and move on. Like nothing happened. The audacity, Claire said, shaking her head. The absolute audacity of men never ceases to amaze me. We drank in silence for a moment. Then Claire asked the question I'd been dreading. What are you going to do now? I don't know, I admitted. I took a week off work for the honeymoon, so I don't have to face everyone at the hospital until next Monday. But after that, I don't know how I'm going to walk in there and face all the pity and the questions. Everyone at the hospital loves you, Claire said. They'll be supportive. They'll want all the juicy details. They'll ask me if I had any idea, if there were red flags, how I could have been so blind. I finished my wine and poured another glass. And the worst part is, I don't have answers. I didn't know. There were no red flags. I was completely blindsided. That's because he's a good liar, Claire said. This isn't your fault, Liv. You trusted someone you loved. That's not a character flaw. It feels like one. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up and immediately wished I hadn't. It was an Instagram DM from someone I didn't know. Saw your wedding video. That sucks, but also kind of funny, LOL. At least you got famous. I showed it to Claire, who looked outraged. What is wrong with people? Block them. Block everyone you don't know. But the messages kept coming. Most were sympathetic, but there were enough cruel ones mixed in to make my stomach hurt. People calling me stupid for not knowing. People analyzing everything from the video, my dress, my reaction, the way I'd thrown the rings. Someone had created a meme using a screenshot of my shocked face at the altar with the caption, "When he says he's working late." I was a joke. A punchline. Turn it off, Claire said, taking my phone from my hands. Social media is toxic. You don't need this right now. She was right, but the damage was done. I'd seen enough to know that my private nightmare was public entertainment. I need to leave, I said suddenly. I need to get out of Charleston. Away from all of this. Where would you go? I don't know. Anywhere. Somewhere people don't know me, don't recognize me, haven't seen the video. That's nowhere, Claire said gently. The video is everywhere, Liv. Running away won't help. Then what will? Because I can't stay here. I can't walk around Charleston knowing that everyone has seen it. Everyone knows what happened. The pity will kill me. Claire was quiet for a long moment, drinking her wine and thinking. Then she said, "You know what you need? Revenge. Revenge. Not like slashing his tires revenge, although we can still do that if you want. But real revenge. The best revenge. Success. Happiness. Moving on and living your best life while he's stuck with a crazy baby mama and a reputation as a cheating scumbag." His reputation is fine, I said bitterly. Some of the comments on the videos are defending him, saying Victoria probably trapped him, that I should forgive him, that everyone makes mistakes. Those people are idiots, Claire said. But here's the thing, you can't control what people think or say. You can only control what you do next. So what do you want to do? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I want my life back, I said finally. The life I was supposed to have. The house, the career, the happiness. Everything he took from me. Then take it back, Claire said. Not with him. Without him. Build a better life than the one you would have had with that lying piece of garbage. How? I don't know yet. But we'll figure it out. Together. She held up her wine glass. To new beginnings. I clinked my glass against hers. To new beginnings. We drank, and for the first time since yesterday, I felt something other than despair. I felt angry. And anger, I was learning, was much more useful than heartbreak. 3 weeks later, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror at Children's Memorial Hospital, giving myself a pep talk. You can do this. You've handled screaming toddlers with ear infections and helicopter parents demanding antibiotics for viral infections. You can handle some gossip. My reflection didn't look convinced. I'd lost weight, the heartbreak diet, Claire called it, and there were dark circles under my eyes despite the concealer I'd carefully applied. But I was dressed in my favorite scrubs, my hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and I'd even put on mascara. It was my first day back at work since the wedding that wasn't. I'd spent the past 3 weeks in a haze of ice cream, wine, and mindless Netflix binges at my parents' house. Claire had been right. Running away wouldn't help. The video had over 10 million views now. I'd been featured in a BuzzFeed article titled, "Top 10 Most Dramatic Wedding Fails of 2025. Someone had even created a TikTok sound using Victoria's voice saying, "I'm pregnant with his child," and people were using it for their own dramatic reveals. My humiliation had become a cultural moment, but I couldn't hide forever. I had bills to pay, a career I loved, and, as Claire kept reminding me, a life to rebuild. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked out of the bathroom. The pediatric unit was bustling with the usual Monday morning chaos. Parents checking in with sick kids, nurses updating charts, doctors making rounds. For a brief, wonderful moment, I thought maybe everyone was too busy to notice me. Then I saw Jasmine, one of the other pediatric nurses, spot me. Her eyes went wide, and she immediately grabbed the arm of Dr. Keisha Washington, the head of pediatrics. So much for going unnoticed. Dr. Washington approached me with a kind smile. She was a formidable woman in her 50s, known for being both brilliant and no-nonsense. I'd always respected her. "Olivia," she said warmly. "Welcome back. How are you doing?" "I'm okay," I said, which was maybe 50% true. "Ready to work." "I'm glad to hear it. If you need anything, time off, adjusted schedule, anything at all, my door is always open." "Thank you, Dr. Washington." She squeezed my shoulder and moved on to check on a patient. Jasmine, however, rushed over the moment the doctor was out of earshot. "Oh my God, Olivia. I've been dying to talk to you. Are you okay? That video was insane. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. Everyone's been talking about it. Did you know about the other woman? Is the baby really his?" "Jasmine," I said firmly, "I appreciate your concern, but I'd really rather not discuss it. I'm here to work." Her face fell slightly, but she nodded. "Of course. Sorry. I can't imagine what you're going through." "Then don't try," I said, more sharply than I intended. I softened my tone. "I'm sorry. It's just, I need this place to be normal. Work is the one thing that hasn't changed, and I need it to stay that way." "I understand," Jasmine said, though I could tell she was disappointed. She'd probably been hoping for all the juicy details to share at the nurse's station. I checked my assignment for the day. Room 304, a 7-year-old named Sophie Martinez with pneumonia. Room 311, a 3-year-old named Liam Peterson with a broken arm. Room 318, a newborn named Ava Chen with jaundice. Wait, Chen. That was the surname I'd been told not to use in. I shook my head, dismissing the strange thought. Where had that come from? I grabbed Sophie's chart and headed to her room, grateful for the distraction of work. Sophie was a sweetheart with big brown eyes and a love of unicorns. Her mother, Mrs. Martinez, was exhausted but relieved that Sophie's fever had finally broken overnight. "You look familiar," Mrs. Martinez said as I checked Sophie's vitals. "Have we met before?" My stomach dropped. "I've been working here for 3 years, so possibly." "No, that's not it." She pulled out her phone, and I knew what was coming. "Oh my God, you're the bride from that wedding video. The one with the pregnant woman." Sophie perked up from her bed. "You were on TikTok? Cool. This was my nightmare. Being recognized, being reduced to that one horrible moment." "Yes," I said, keeping my voice professional. "That was me. But I'd really prefer to focus on Sophie's care right now." Mrs. Martinez looked embarrassed. "Of course. I'm sorry. That was insensitive of me." "It's fine," I lied. "It wasn't fine." Over the course of the next 4 hours, 3 more parents recognized me. A nurse from another floor stopped me in the hallway to offer unsolicited advice about letting go and moving on. Even one of the doctors, Dr. Raymond Phillips, a pediatric surgeon I'd never particularly liked, made a joke about checking for pregnant women before planning my next wedding. By lunch, I was ready to scream. I escaped to the hospital cafeteria, grabbed a salad I had no intention of eating, and found a quiet corner table. I was stabbing at lettuce when someone sat down across from me. "You look like you're fantasizing about that salad being someone's head." I looked up to find Dr. Nathan Pierce, one of the pediatric specialists. He was in his early 40s, with salt and pepper hair and kind gray eyes. We'd worked together on several cases, and I'd always found him easy to talk to. "Maybe I am," I admitted. "Rough first day back. Is it that obvious? You've been stabbing that same piece of lettuce for about 30 seconds now." He unwrapped a sandwich. "For what it's worth, I think it's incredibly brave of you to come back so soon. I didn't have much choice. Bills don't pay themselves. Still, a lot of people would have taken more time off. or transferred to a different hospital. I had considered transferring. But I loved Children's Memorial. I loved my colleagues, my patients, the pediatric unit that had become my second home. Why should I have to leave because Brandon was a cheating liar? I'm not going to let him take this from me too, I said. Dr. Pierce smiled. Good for you. That's the right attitude. We ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. Then he said, I saw the video. I'm sorry that happened to you. I waited for the pity, the invasive questions, the unwanted advice. But he just said, that must have been incredibly painful. If you ever need to talk, professionally, or just as a friend, I'm here. Thank you, I said and meant it. I appreciate that. I'm serious. I know what it's like to have your personal life become public spectacle. It's dehumanizing. I looked at him with surprise. You do. My divorce was messy. It made the local news. My ex-wife had an affair with my business partner, and when I filed for divorce, she tried to claim I was abusive to get a better settlement. It was all lies, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. I lost friends, clients, almost lost my medical license before she finally admitted she'd made it up. That's awful, I said. I had no idea. It was 5 years ago, and I've rebuilt my life since then. But I remember what those first few weeks felt like. The stares, the whispers, the way people treated me like I was either a victim or a villain, never just a person. Yes, I said. That's exactly it. Everyone wants to dissect what happened, analyze my reactions, give me advice. But no one just treats me like me. Then let me be the first, Dr. Pierce said. How's that pneumonia case in 304? I heard she's responding well to antibiotics. I could have hugged him. Instead, we spent the rest of lunch talking about work, about cases, about normal things. When I returned to the floor, I felt marginally better. The afternoon passed more smoothly. I focused on my patients, on their needs, on doing my job well. It helped that pediatrics was chaotic by nature. There wasn't much time for gossip when you were dealing with crying babies, anxious parents, and the constant flow of admissions and discharges. By the time my shift ended at 7, I was exhausted but also strangely proud of myself. I'd survived. I'd come back, faced the whispers and the stares, and I'd survived. I was walking to my car when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello. Is this Olivia Foster? A woman's voice I didn't recognize. Who's asking? My name is Patricia Thornton. I'm a literary agent with Thornton and Associates in New York. I'd like to talk to you about a potential book deal. I stopped walking. I'm sorry, what? Your story has captivated millions of people, Patricia said. The wedding video, the betrayal, the public humiliation. It's the kind of story that resonates. I'd like to represent you in writing a memoir about your experience. You want me to write a book about the worst day of my life. I want you to write a book about surviving the worst day of your life. About resilience, about rebuilding, about refusing to let one man's betrayal define you. The market for these kinds of stories is incredibly strong right now. I'm not interested in profiting off my pain, I said. Then profit off your strength, Patricia countered. Look, I understand this is unexpected. But think about it. You have a platform now, whether you wanted it or not. You can either let the narrative be controlled by TikTok comments and tabloid articles, or you can control it yourself. Tell your own story in your own words. I need to think about it. Of course. Here's my number. Call me when you're ready to talk. She hung up, leaving me standing in the parking lot, stunned. A book deal. Someone wanted to pay me to relive my trauma in detail. My first instinct was to delete her number and never think about it again. But as I drove home to my parents' house, I still couldn't bring myself to look for my own apartment. I found myself thinking about what she'd said. Control the narrative. Tell my own story. For 3 weeks, I'd been the victim of everyone else's interpretation. The pitted bride. The blind girlfriend. The meme. What if I could change that? What if I could turn my pain into something meaningful? I was still thinking about it when I pulled into my parents' driveway and saw an unfamiliar car parked on the street. As I got out, a woman emerged from the driver's seat. Victoria. She looked different without the dramatic red dress and pregnancy glow of the wedding. She was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt that stretched over her very pregnant belly. Her hair was in a messy bun, and she wasn't wearing makeup. She looked tired. Human. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my hand on my phone, ready to call the police. "I need to talk to you," Victoria said. "Please. Just 5 minutes." "You've got to be kidding me. You destroyed my wedding, and now you want to chat." "I know you hate me," she said. "I would hate me too. But please, just hear me out. It's about Brandon." Against my better judgment, I stayed put. "What about him?" Victoria looked around nervously. "Not here. Can we go somewhere private? Please." Every instinct told me to tell her to leave. But curiosity won out. "There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here. Meet me there in 10 minutes. And this better be good." "It will be. I promise." 10 minutes later, we sat across from each other in a booth at Magnolia Cafe, 2 cappuccinos on the table between us. Victoria's hands were wrapped around her mug, and she looked like she might cry. "Talk," I said. "You have 5 minutes." "Brandon lied," she said. "About everything. About me, about our relationship, about the baby. I know he lied. That's why we're not getting married." "No, I mean he lied to both of us." Victoria's voice broke. "He told me you were just a casual thing. That you two weren't serious, that he was going to break up with you soon. He said he loved me, that we were going to be a family once the baby was born." I stared at her. "You believe that?" "He was very convincing," she said bitterly. "He showed me texts where you supposedly said the relationship was casual. He told me you were seeing other people too. I didn't know about the wedding until a month ago." "How did you find out?" "I saw the invitation. He left it in his car, and I found it when I was looking for his insurance card after a doctor's appointment." She wiped her eyes. "I confronted him and he panicked. He tried to say it was a work colleague's wedding that he had to attend for networking. But I looked you up online, found your Facebook, saw all the engagement photos. That's when I realized he'd been lying to me the entire time. So you decided to crash my wedding." "I was angry," she said. "I was hurt and pregnant and stupid. I wanted to make him pay for lying to me. I wanted you to know the truth. I don't know what I thought, that maybe we'd both leave him and he'd end up alone like he deserved. And instead, you made me a viral joke." "I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I didn't think about what it would do to you. I was only thinking about myself, about how betrayed I felt. But you didn't deserve what I did. You didn't deserve any of this." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to throw my coffee in her face. Part of me felt an unexpected stab of sympathy. We were both victims of Brandon's lies. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because he's still lying," Victoria said. "After the wedding, he came to see me. He said he was done with you, that we could finally be together like he'd always wanted. He moved into my apartment in Atlanta. For 2 weeks, everything was perfect. He was excited about the baby, talking about getting married after the birth, looking at houses." "Let me guess," I said. "It didn't last. Last week, I found out he's been messaging other women on dating apps. Multiple women. He's been setting up dates for when he supposedly travels for work." She pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots. Dating profiles, flirty messages, plans to meet up. My stomach turned. "He hasn't changed." "He's never going to change," Victoria said. "He's a narcissist who likes having multiple women on the hook. It makes him feel powerful. And I was so stupid I fell for it." "We both did," I said quietly. Victoria looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I ruined your wedding. I humiliated you in front of everyone you love. And I can't take it back. But I can try to make it right." "How?" She pulled a folder from her bag and slid it across the table. "This is everything. Bank statements showing he's been supporting me financially for 3 years. Hotel receipts from all his business trips. Text messages where he talks about leaving you once the baby's born. The dating app screenshots. A copy of the paternity test. Everything you need to prove he's been lying." I stared at the folder. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because you deserve the truth. And because—" She took a shaky breath. "Because when I posted that video, I thought I was exposing him. But I was really just hurting you. This is me actually exposing him. If you want to show people who he really is, this is how you do it." I opened the folder. Page after page of evidence. Text messages that made my skin crawl. Bank transfers of thousands of dollars. Hotel room receipts from weekends when he told me he was visiting his parents. There's something else, Victoria said. The house you two were buying? He never pulled out of the deal. He just changed the paperwork to remove your name and added mine instead. We were supposed to move in next month. The betrayal hit me anew. Our house, the one we picked out together, with the garden and the hardwood floors and the bedroom we planned to turn into a nursery someday. He'd given it to her. I didn't know, Victoria said quickly. I swear I didn't know it was supposed to be your house until I saw the address on the closing documents and looked it up. That's when I realized he'd been playing both of us the entire time. I closed the folder, my hands shaking. What do you want me to do with this? Whatever you want, Victoria said. Sue him, expose him, burn it all. I don't care. I'm done with him. I'm moving back to Florida to live with my parents until the baby's born. After that, I don't know, but I know I can't be with him. What about the baby? I'll do a custody arrangement. He'll have to pay child support, but I don't want him in my life more than absolutely necessary. She stood up, gathering her things. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know the truth. All of it. She left, and I sat there with the folder in front of me, my cappuccino going cold. I thought about Patricia Thornton's phone call, about controlling the narrative, about turning my pain into power. I pulled out my phone and called Claire. Hey, she answered. How was your first day back? Eventful, I said. How would you feel about helping me destroy someone's reputation? There was a pause, then. I'll be at your place in 20 minutes. This is going to be good. For the first time in 3 weeks, I smiled. It was time to stop being the victim of my story. It was time to become the hero. I met Patricia Thornton in person 2 weeks later at an upscale cafe in downtown Charleston. She was exactly what I'd imagined. Sharp blazer, designer glasses, an air of New York efficiency that made me feel simultaneously intimidated and empowered. Olivia, she said, shaking my hand firmly. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I've been following your story closely. Everyone has, I said, sliding into the booth across from her. She smiled. True. But I'm interested in more than just the viral moment. I'm interested in what comes next. The redemption arc, if you will. I pulled out the folder Victoria had given me and placed it on the table between us. What if I told you it gets worse? Patricia's eyes lit up with professional interest. Tell me everything. Over the next hour, I walked her through everything. The affair that had lasted my entire relationship with Brandon. The financial support he'd been giving Victoria. The house he'd stolen from me. The dating apps where he was already hunting for his next victim. Patricia took notes, occasionally asking questions, her expression growing more animated with each revelation. This is incredible, she said finally. I mean, it's terrible for you, but from a narrative standpoint, this is a bestseller. The charming boyfriend, who turns out to be a serial manipulator. The two women, who were pitted against each other, discovering they were both victims. The evidence that proves everything. Olivia, this isn't just a memoir. This is a cautionary tale, a thriller, and a triumph all rolled into one. I want to do more than write a book, I said. I want to expose him. Really expose him. So that no other woman falls for his lies. Patricia leaned forward. What did you have in mind? A tell-all article first. Something that goes viral, but this time on my terms. Then the book. And I want to use the platform to talk about narcissistic abuse, love bombing, the warning signs that I missed. I want to turn my story into something that helps people. I love it, Patricia said. I have contacts at several major publications. Let me make some calls. In the meantime, you should start documenting everything. Keep a journal of your feelings, your recovery process. The book will write itself. We spent another hour discussing logistics, timelines, contracts, potential publishers. By the time I left the cafe, I felt like I was finally taking control of my narrative. But first, I had one more person to confront. I drove to Savannah on a Saturday morning. Brandon was living back in his apartment there. Victoria had confirmed that after she'd kicked him out. I called ahead to make sure he'd be there, pretending I wanted to talk things through. He'd sounded so hopeful on the phone. Olivia, I'm so glad you called. I've been thinking about you constantly. Can we please sit down and talk? I know I can make you understand. Sure, Brandon. Let's talk. I parked outside his apartment complex, a modern building near the historic district. Claire was waiting in her car across the street, my backup in case things went south. I'd also told my father where I was going, and he'd made me promise to call him the moment I left. I took a deep breath, grabbed the folder, and headed up to apartment 412. Brandon answered on the first knock. He looked better than he had when he'd showed up at my parents' house, showered, shaved, wearing a button-down shirt like he was trying to impress me. "Olivia," he said, his face breaking into that charming smile that used to make my heart race. Now it just made me feel sick. "Come in. I made coffee. Your favorite, vanilla oat milk latte." Of course he did. He was love-bombing me, trying to remind me of the good times. I walked into the apartment, taking in the details. Modern furniture, expensive electronics, photos on the wall, and there, on the bookshelf, was a framed picture of us from last Christmas, like he'd never been living with Victoria at all. "Nice place," I said. "Must cost a fortune." "I do okay," he said modestly, handing me the coffee. "Please sit. I've been dying to talk to you." I sat on his leather couch, placing the folder on my lap. "You wanted to talk. So talk." He sat beside me, close, but not too close. Calculated. "I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few weeks. About us, about what happened, about what I want for my future." "And what do you want?" "You," he said simply. "I want you, Olivia. I know I made mistakes, huge mistakes, but I love you. I've always loved you. What happened with Victoria it was a mess, but it's over now. She's moving back to Florida, and I'm here, and I want us to start over." "Start over," I repeated. "Just like that." "I know it won't be easy," he said. "I know I need to earn back your trust, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Couples therapy, complete transparency, whatever you need." "What about the baby?" A flicker of annoyance crossed his face before he smoothed it over. "I'll handle that. Child support, minimal visitation. The baby doesn't have to affect our relationship." "Our relationship," I said. "You mean the relationship built entirely on lies?" "Not entirely." "How much of it was real, Brandon?" I asked. "Any of it? Or was I just another conquest? Another woman to keep on the hook while you juggled others?" "That's not fair," he said. "What I felt for you is real. Is real." I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. Bank statements showing monthly transfers of $2,500 to Victoria's account for the past 3 years. "What's this?" I asked. His face paled. "Where did you get that?" "Answer the question." "What is it?" I was helping Victoria out. She was struggling financially. For 3 years, $2,500 a month. That's $90,000, Brandon. I pulled out another document. "And what about these hotel receipts? The Ritz-Carlton in Atlanta, every other weekend for 2 years. You told me you were staying with your college buddy when you visited the city." "Olivia, let me explain." "I'm not done." I spread more documents across his expensive coffee table. Text messages where you tell Victoria that I'm just a casual thing. Dating app profiles from last month, Brandon, where you're setting up dates with other women. And my personal favorite, I pulled out the house closing documents, the house we picked out together. The one you told me we couldn't afford after the wedding fell through. Except you're closing on it next month with Victoria's name on the mortgage instead of mine. Brandon stared at the evidence spread before him, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. "You're a con artist," I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. "You're a narcissist who gets off on manipulating women. How many of us are there, Brandon? How many women have you love-bombed and lied to and strung along?" "You don't understand," he said, his voice taking on a desperate edge. "It's complicated. Victoria was obsessed with me. She threatened to ruin my life if I left her. I had to keep sending her money, had to keep seeing her, or she would have destroyed everything." "So you're saying you were the victim?" I asked incredulously. "You were being blackmailed into a 3-year relationship and a baby?" "Yes, exactly." He grabbed onto this narrative like a lifeline. "She was crazy, Olivia. She manipulated me into everything. The money, the relationship, even the pregnancy. She said she was on birth control, but she wasn't. She trapped me. Then explain the dating apps, I said coldly. Was someone forcing you to create profiles and message other women? He fell silent. That's what I thought. I gathered up the documents and stood. I came here to give you a chance to tell me the truth. To admit what you did, apologize, and maybe, I would have kept this private. But you can't even be honest now, when I have all the evidence right here. Wait, he said, standing and grabbing my arm. What are you going to do with those documents? I pulled my arm free. I'm going to make sure every woman in a 100-mile radius knows exactly who you are. I'm writing an article that will be published in a major magazine. I'm writing a book, and I'm going to use my viral moment to make sure you never do this to anyone else again. His face transformed. The charm vanished, replaced by cold fury. You can't do that. Watch me. I'll sue you for defamation, he threatened. I'll destroy you. I have lawyers, Olivia. Good lawyers. Sue me, I said. I have evidence. You have lies. Good luck with that. Think about what you're doing, he said, his voice turning cajoling. Think about your reputation. You'll look bitter, vindictive. People will say you're just a scorned woman trying to get revenge. Let them say whatever they want. I'm done caring what people think. I headed for the door. I could make things very difficult for you, he called after me. The hospital where you work. I have friends on the board. I could make life very uncomfortable. I turned back to look at him one last time. The man I'd loved, the man I'd almost married, was showing me exactly who he really was. And he was pathetic. Threaten me again, and I'll add it to the article, I said. Goodbye, Brandon. I walked out, closing the door on that chapter of my life. Claire was waiting in the parking lot. I got into her car, and she took one look at my face and said, How did it go? He threatened me, tried to manipulate me, and didn't apologize once. So, exactly as expected? Pretty much. I pulled out my phone. Let's go get lunch. I need to call Patricia and tell her we're moving forward with everything. That's my girl, Claire said, starting the car. Where do you want to eat? Somewhere expensive. I'm celebrating. Celebrating what? My freedom. The article dropped 6 weeks later in Cosmopolitan. The headline read, The Man Who Fooled Us Both. How I Discovered My Fiancé Was Living a Double Life. It went viral within hours. I'd spent weeks working with the magazine's fact-checkers, lawyers, and editors. Every claim was vetted, every piece of evidence verified. Victoria had agreed to be interviewed as well, providing her side of the story. Together, we painted a comprehensive picture of Brandon's manipulation. The response was overwhelming. Supportive messages flooded my social media. Women shared their own stories of narcissistic partners, of red flags they'd missed, of the slow realization that they'd been manipulated. Some had been in situations eerily similar to mine. Others had escaped worse. But there were also the expected negative comments. People saying I was bitter, that I should have kept it private, that I was just as bad as Brandon for exposing him publicly. I didn't care. For every negative comment, there were 10 positive ones. Women thanking me for warning them. A few women even came forward claiming Brandon had pursued them on dating apps, not knowing he was in relationships with multiple people. The story got picked up by other publications. I was invited to do podcast interviews, speak on morning shows, write op-eds about recognizing manipulative behavior in relationships. Brandon, meanwhile, was dealing with his own fallout. His pharmaceutical company launched an internal investigation after several female colleagues came forward with complaints about inappropriate behavior. His social media had been deleted. According to Victoria, who I'd stayed in touch with, he'd moved back in with his parents in Atlanta. The house deal had fallen through. Victoria was living with her parents in Tampa, preparing for the baby's birth. We texted occasionally, not quite friends, but united in our shared experience. My book deal was finalized 3 months after the article. I spent every spare moment writing, processing, healing. The book wouldn't come out for another year, but I was already working with domestic violence organizations, planning to donate a portion of the proceeds to help other women escape manipulative relationships. Dr. Pierce had become a good friend. We had coffee every week, and he became my sounding board as I navigated my newfound platform. He'd been through public humiliation himself. He understood the strange space between wanting privacy and feeling obligated to use your experience to help others. "You're handling this remarkably well," he said one afternoon over lattes at our usual cafe. "A lot of people would have crumbled under this kind of scrutiny." "I almost did," I admitted. But then I realized that staying silent, hiding away, that would mean Brandon won. And I couldn't let that happen. "For what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave." "I don't feel brave. I feel angry most of the time. And sad. And sometimes I still miss who I thought he was, even though I know that person never existed." "That's normal," Nathan said. "You're grieving someone who never was. That's harder than grieving someone real." He was right. The hardest part wasn't getting over Brandon. It was getting over the future I'd imagined, the person I'd thought I was marrying, the life I'd thought I was building. But slowly, painfully, I was building a new life. A better one. I'd moved out of my parents' house and into a small apartment near the hospital. It was modest, one bedroom, barely any closet space, but it was mine. I decorated it with plants and artwork and books, creating a space that felt like healing. Claire came over most weekends. We'd cook dinner, drink wine, watch terrible reality TV, and laugh at other people's drama. "You know what's wild?" Claire said one evening, as we sat on my tiny balcony watching the sunset. "A year ago, you were planning a wedding. Now you're basically famous, writing a book, and single-handedly taking down narcissistic men everywhere." "I wouldn't say single-handedly. I would. Own it, live. You turn the worst moment of your life into something meaningful. That's powerful." I thought about that as I got ready for bed later that night. Powerful. Was that what I was now? A year ago, I'd felt powerless. Standing at that altar, being humiliated in front of everyone, watching my fairy tale crumble. I'd felt like my life was ending. But it wasn't ending. It was beginning. 6 months after the article, I was invited to speak at a women's conference in New York. The topic was turning pain into purpose, how to rebuild after betrayal. I was terrified. Speaking to a room full of people, sharing my most painful moments, was different from writing them down. Writing felt safe, controlled. Speaking felt vulnerable. But I'd accepted the invitation. Because if my story could help even one woman recognize the signs of a manipulative relationship, it was worth the discomfort. The conference was held at a hotel in Midtown Manhattan. 300 women filled the ballroom, and I stood backstage, my hands shaking as I listened to my introduction. And she turned that moment of public humiliation into a platform for change. "Please welcome Olivia Foster." I walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The lights were bright, the audience a sea of faces. For a moment, I froze. Then I saw a woman in the third row. She was crying, nodding at me encouragingly. And I remembered why I was doing this. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "A year ago, I was standing at an altar in my grandmother's wedding dress, about to marry the man I thought was the love of my life. 30 seconds later, my world imploded. And I'm here to tell you that the implosion was the best thing that ever happened to me." I told my story. Not just the viral moment, but everything that came before and after. The love bombing, the red flags I'd missed, the warning signs that seemed obvious in retrospect. The evidence Victoria had provided. Brandon's threats and manipulation, even after everything had been exposed. But mostly, I talked about the aftermath. The healing, the anger, the grief, the slow process of rebuilding myself. "I'm not going to stand here and tell you that everything happens for a reason," I said. "Because that's garbage. Bad things happen to good people, and there's no cosmic reason for it. But I will tell you that you get to choose what you do with the bad things. You can let them destroy you, or you can let them reshape you into something stronger." The audience was silent, hanging on every word. "I was reshaped by fire," I continued. "And I'm not going to lie, it hurt like hell. There were days I didn't want to get out of bed. Days I wanted to hide from the world forever. Days I wanted to give up. But I didn't. Because I refused to let one man's betrayal define the rest of my life." When I finished speaking, the applause was deafening. Women stood, tears streaming down their faces. Several rushed the stage afterward, wanting to share their own stories, to thank me, to tell me I'd given them hope. One woman, maybe in her 50s, grabbed my hands. "My daughter is in a relationship like the one you described. She doesn't see it yet, but I'm going to give her your article. Maybe hearing it from someone else will help her understand." I hope so, I said. And tell her that when she's ready to leave, there are people who will help her. She doesn't have to do it alone. Patricia found me after the event, beaming. That was incredible. Absolutely incredible. The book is going to be massive, Olivia. I can feel it. I hope so, I said. Not for the money or the fame. I just wanted to help people. It will, Patricia assured me. Trust me. That night, I sat in my hotel room overlooking Times Square, processing everything. A year ago, I'd been preparing for my wedding, blissfully unaware that my entire relationship was a lie. Now I was in New York, having just spoken to 300 women about surviving betrayal, with a book deal and a platform and a purpose I never could have imagined. My phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Saw a video of your speech. You were amazing. So proud of you. Then one from my mother. Your father and I watched the live stream. You were beautiful, sweetheart. So strong. Then one from Dr. Pierce. Caught the end of your talk. Incredibly moving. Coffee when you're back in Charleston. And finally, surprisingly, one from Victoria. Watched your speech. Thank you for telling our story. Baby Asher and I are doing well. Hope you are too. Asher. She'd named the baby Asher. Brandon's son, being raised by a woman who'd found the courage to leave him. I thought about responding, about checking in, about maintaining that strange connection we'd formed through shared trauma. But instead, I just sent back a simple heart emoji. Some connections didn't need words. I looked out at the glittering New York skyline and thought about the journey that had brought me here. The fairy tale that had shattered, the humiliation that had gone viral, the pain that had transformed into purpose. I wasn't the same person who'd stood at that altar a year ago. That Olivia had been naive, trusting, willing to overlook red flags in favor of a fairy tale ending. This Olivia was wiser, stronger, more cautious, yes, but also more confident. I knew my worth now. I knew what I would and wouldn't tolerate. I knew that I could survive the worst day of my life and come out the other side, not just intact, but better. My phone buzzed again. Another text from an unknown number. I almost didn't open it, expecting spam or a journalist requesting an interview. But something made me look. I'm sorry for everything. You deserve better. I hope you're happy now. B. Brandon. After all these months, after everything, he was reaching out. A year ago, receiving that text would have broken me. I would have wanted to respond, to engage, to try one more time to get an explanation that made sense. Now, I deleted it without responding. He didn't get to have the last word in my story anymore. I opened my laptop and pulled up the document for my book. The working title was After the Altar, Finding Myself After Losing Everything. It was nearly finished now. Months of work poured into every chapter. I read through the final chapter, the one I'd written and rewritten a dozen times, trying to find the right way to end my story. This isn't a story about a wedding that didn't happen. It's a story about a woman who found herself in the aftermath. The wedding was supposed to be the beginning of my happily ever after. Instead, it was the end of my fairy tale and the beginning of my real life. And my real life, it turns out, is better than any fairy tale could have been. Because fairy tales are about being rescued. Real life is about rescuing yourself. Brandon took a lot from me. My trust, my innocence, my fairy tale ending. But he didn't take everything. He didn't take my strength, my resilience, or my ability to rebuild. I'm not grateful for what happened. I wouldn't wish this experience on anyone, but I'm grateful for who I became because of it. To anyone reading this who sees themselves in my story, you are not stupid for trusting someone you loved. You are not weak for staying as long as you did. You are not broken beyond repair. You are surviving, and survival is the first step toward thriving. My wedding didn't happen, but my life did, and it's more beautiful than I ever imagined. I saved the document and closed my laptop. Tomorrow, I'd send the final draft to Patricia and my editor. Tomorrow, I'd start the next chapter of my publicity tour. Tomorrow, I'd continue building this new life. But tonight, I just sat at the window watching the city lights and felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. The fairy tale was over. But my story was just beginning. 1 year later, the book launch party was held at a bookstore in Charleston, the same city where my almost wedding had taken place. It felt right, somehow, to celebrate my survival in the place where I'd almost lost myself. The store was packed. Friends, family, colleagues from the hospital, and dozens of readers who'd connected with my story. Claire stood beside me, championing champagne and looking proud. My parents were there, holding hands and beaming. Even my grandmother had made the trip, telling anyone who would listen that she'd always known I was stronger than I looked. Dr. Pierce arrived with a bouquet of flowers and a genuine smile. "Congratulations, Olivia. You earned this." "Thank you, Nathan, for everything. Your friendship has meant more than you know." As I signed books and chatted with readers, I noticed a familiar face near the back of the store. Victoria, holding baby Asher, who was nearly 8 months old now. I made my way over to her. "You came. I couldn't miss this," she said. "This is our story, too. Mine and Asher's." I looked at the baby, who had Brandon's green eyes but Victoria's smile. "He's beautiful." "He is. And he'll grow up knowing his mother chose herself and her son over a man who didn't deserve either of them." She looked at the book in her hands. "Thank you for changing both our lives." "We changed our own lives," I said. "I just wrote about it." We hugged, briefly. Two women who'd been pitted against each other by a man's lies, now united in our survival. As the evening wound down and the last guests trickled out, I stood in the empty bookstore, holding a copy of my book. The cover showed a silhouette of a woman walking away from a church, her wedding dress trailing behind her, the sun rising ahead. My phone buzzed. A notification that the book had hit #1 on Amazon in its category. Claire squealed. "You did it! You're a best-selling author." "We did it," I corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." As we packed up to leave, I took one last look around the bookstore at the display of my books, at the life I'd built from the ashes of my fairy tale. The woman who'd stood at that altar in her grandmother's dress felt like a stranger now. She'd been so sure of her future, so confident in her happy ending. I wasn't sure of anything anymore, but I was okay with that, because I'd learned that life doesn't follow a script. There are no guaranteed happy endings. There are just choices, made one day at a time, to keep moving forward. And I was moving forward, not toward a man, or a wedding, or a fairy tale ending, just toward myself, the strongest, truest version of myself I'd ever been. And that, I'd learned, was the only happy ending that mattered.